have finally watched all of Christopher Nolan's films, so now that I've seen The Odyssey, I can do a proper rank. Special shout out to Charlie Edwards for leaving this comment under my last video. Make sure you guys leave a comment under this one so you can be featured in the next one. Drop your top 3 Nolan films down in the comments. Not your whole list, just your top 3. This is going to be a spoiler-free ranking because some of these movies are too good. And if you guys haven't watched them yet, I don't want to spoil them for you. At number 13, I do have Following, which is Nolan's first film. It's where non-linear Nolan was born. I really don't have much to say about this. It wasn't the best thing I've ever watched, but if anything, it was more proof of concept for a first film. Christopher Nolan is kind of showing that he knows what kind of movies he wants to make and doing it at a very, very low budget. Next, I have Dunkirk. I think this movie just wasn't for me. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't like your typical war movie, and I didn't really feel connected to any of the characters. So I respect what it's like, what the message is, what it stands for, but other than that, I really don't have too much to say about it, except that it had good cinematography. The fact that this movie is number 12 just shows me that Christopher Nolan doesn't have too many bad movies. Even if you don't like them, I don't think he has any objectively bad movies. Next, I have The Prestige, which was actually a really fun watch, and I didn't expect it to be about magic. I like that both Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman's characters have their own sense of what magic is, and even though I think it is the weaker of all of his movies, it's still fun. Like, it's a fun watch. Next, I have The Dark Knight Rises, and I know it's lower on the list, but like I said before, I don't think Nolan has a bad movie. I think it was a nice way to end the trilogy, but because I watched it directly after The Dark Knight, I think I'm a little biased. It didn't give me the same rush. It didn't stir me in the same way. And it had some good scenes. The cinematography was amazing. It's probably one of my favorite cinematography films of his. But that's really it. Next, I have Insomnia, and it's kind of weird that this movie is up this high because out of all of these movies, this is the movie I feel like I've seen before. And then you have Robin Williams and Al Pacino playing opposite each other, being kind of character foils for one another, which is something that, again, Nolan likes to do. I was down for the ride. I was intrigued. Al Pacino does a obsessive detective so well, and I feel like we didn't get to see enough of Robin Williams being a bad guy, being a villain. I wish we got to see more of that because he does it so very well. Next, I have Batman Begins. It's the first of its kind, having this hyper realistic superhero movie, especially before they became overdone. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. This is a part in Nolan's filmography where everything is kind of good, so I don't really have anything bad to say about it. I think that there are just other films that I enjoyed more. And this is when I really started to notice the trend of the protagonist having a character that kind of pushes them to their limits, and you kind of get to see what the protagonist is made of. This is one of the best instances of that. Next, I have Tenet, and everybody who disparages this movie the way they did, y'all played. This movie was not that. I was expecting to go into this movie and it was gonna be trash, and it was not. And that's how I know sometimes y'all just be saying stuff. That being said, I understand some of the flack that it gets. It is a little bit long. It doesn't really dive deep into any of the characters, but I feel like the plot, the time travel of it all, and just how exhilarating it is to watch, I don't really care. I don't need to know this character's backstory. Is he gonna be able to pull this off or not? That's all I cared about. So it rides in the middle. It's not the weakest of his films, but it's definitely not the best. I feel the same way about The Odyssey. Non-linear Nolan strikes again, but this time it didn't feel needed. It felt completely unnecessary. And the first half of this movie, you really kind of gotta trudge to get through. Once you get towards the end, that's when it starts to get exciting and exhilarating, but it also doesn't do so much of the time jumping and the non-linear storytelling. But it is a great epic. It is a beautifully shot movie. And that's just why it has to kind of go in the middle, because it was not doing for me what other Christopher Nolan movies did for me. Now we're in the top 5. And at number 5, I have Memento. I was not expecting to like this movie as much as I did. I love how gritty and 2000s it looks. For this to be his second film, it's so solid and it's so creative, and it Guy Pearce is he just performs so very well. It's such a simple story. And I know I get on Christopher Nolan for the nonlinear storytelling, but if it works in context of the plot, I don't mind it. A man that has short-term memory loss, constantly forgetting what's happening, it makes sense when we kind of watch in reverse and see how he got to the point that he got to. If you haven't seen it, I strongly suggest watching it. It's about Leonard Shelby, who is looking for his wife's killer, but he has short-term memory loss. So he only remembers certain things, and he has all these tattoos on his body to remind him of what he's trying to do and how he's gonna find this man. It really is so good, and I don't think a lot of people would say Memento is not in their top 5 Nolan movies. Number 4, I do have Interstellar. This is probably the first Christopher Nolan movie that I sat down and watched, and the film bros are right about this movie. And as the movie goes on, it definitely can kind of like unravel and get a little messy, but Matthew McConaughey does such an amazing job, and it's just, the cinematography of this movie is amazing. When people think like space movies, Interstellar usually is at the top. It's not the top of the Nolan movies for me, but I can't deny and say Interstellar is not just a great movie. I want you guys to know that the top 3 was the hardest for me to do. I kept changing it. But number 3, I do have Inception. Nonlinear storytelling strikes again. The dead wife being the motivator strikes again. But in this movie, it works. And of course, there's Leonardo DiCaprio, which helps it work a little better. But it's so fun and imaginative and creative, and it's straight to the point. There's not a whole bunch of building up that we do. We learn very early, we're dream jumping. That's what this is. That's what's happening. That's it. And people get on Nolan for not having like relatable characters, and his movies are like boy movies, which I kind of agree. But sometimes I don't need a super deep character, especially once the world gets bigger and bigger. It makes more sense for the characters to be a little more two-dimensional so you can take in everything else that's happening. It overly works in Inception. And the cinematography is so playful, and a lot of it was based on the animated movie called Paprika. So if by some reason you haven't seen Inception yet, go and watch it. Next, I have Oppenheimer, which was also one of my first Nolan watches, which does sound kind of crazy, but I was really blown away. Like, I had never seen nonlinear be executed in that way, and I thought it was beautifully shot. I liked how all the different time periods were lit differently, and unbeknownst to me, he was just kind of like calling back to Memento, because he did the same thing just on a larger scale. And Cillian Murphy's performance was amazing, and the cinematography, and watching somebody deal with guilt and regret on a large scale like that, which is something I hadn't seen before. And I don't think we've really seen it since. I really enjoyed it so much more than I thought I would. And that leaves the last movie, top 2 and it's not 2, The Dark Knight. And I know I hate to be such a basic bitch. I'm so sorry. But I genuinely think that this movie has everything that Nolan does best, and he executes it perfectly right. And I think if you don't watch Christopher Nolan films in a marathon like I just did, I don't know if you would notice it, but the Joker being Batman's character foil is just like The Prestige and just like Insomnia. We just get to watch this person who we are invested in, and we get to see how his beliefs are challenged in this crazy ass unhinged way. It's beautiful framing, beautiful composition, very, very high stakes like Christopher Nolan is used to doing. And Heath Ledger's performance is a phenomenal performance. He really melts into the character. And I think the best superhero movies are the ones where the superhero has lost everything, where his back is against the wall, where he is in the dark night of the soul. That is the only time superheroes really make you feel something. That's why everybody loves Spider-Man so much. And I think this movie executed that perfectly. I don't think that there is anything wrong in this movie. But that is my Christopher Nolan ranking. I don't know how I feel about Christopher Nolan as a director. Like, I like his movies. I'm not like super in love with them, but I can respect what he got going on over there. I like how he writes his twists in every movie. I like that he makes it a point to, no matter how big or small the story is, to make it feel like an epic story. Shout out Christopher Nolan. Make sure you guys let me know down in the comments what your top 3 Nolan movies are, and while you're down there, make sure you hit that subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.